The air was heavy that autumn night in Tokyo. Dry leaves danced along the sidewalks, carried by a cold breeze that seemed to whisper ancient secrets. I, Hiroshi Nakamura, a skeptical history professor, walked through the narrow streets of Yatsuya, my heart beating with an uneasy rhythm I couldn't explain. My mission was simple, or so I thought: to spend the night at the infamous church of Oiwa to debunk the legends that had circulated for generations. As a man of science, I was determined to prove that the supposed supernatural phenomena were nothing more than rumors and fertile imaginations. Little did I know that this night would forever change my perception of reality. As I approached the church, the atmosphere seemed to shift. The city lights grew more distant, as if this place existed in a temporal bubble of its own. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the occasional rustling of leaves and the distant echo of my own footsteps. The church of Oiwa loomed before me, a Gothic structure that seemed out of place amid the traditional Japanese architecture. Its spiked towers scratched the night sky, and the gargoyles on its edges appeared to watch me with hollow eyes. The facade, once white, was now stained by time, giving the building a sickly, decayed appearance. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my nerves. "It's just an old building," I murmured to myself, my voice sounding oddly muffled in the still air. With slightly trembling hands, I inserted the key into the rusty lock of the main gate. The screech of metal echoed through the night, making me involuntarily shiver. I stepped into the churchyard, my footsteps crunching on dry leaves that covered the stone ground. The feeling of being watched intensified, and I couldn't help but glance over my shoulder several times, only to be met with shadows and more shadows. As I approached the main entrance, I noticed something strange. One of the massive wooden doors was slightly ajar, swaying gently in the breeze. I frowned, certain that the caretaker had assured me the place would be completely locked. I hesitated for a moment, but my curiosity eventually won out over the growing unease. I pushed the door, which opened with a long, ominous groan. The interior of the church was plunged in an almost palpable darkness. The beam of my flashlight barely penetrated the gloom, revealing only fragments of the space. Dusty wooden pews, stained glass windows, and an imposing cross on the main altar. The smell of mold and old incense filled my nostrils, mingling with something else, something I couldn't immediately identify. It was a sweet and putrid odor, like decaying flowers. I swallowed hard, feeling my throat tighten. "Hello!" I called out, my voice echoing off the stone walls. "Is anyone here?" Silence. Only the echo of my own voice answered. I slowly advanced down the central aisle, the beam of my flashlight dancing along the walls. Shadows seemed to move in the corners of my vision, but every time I turned to look directly, there was nothing there. My heart raced, and I could feel cold sweat dripping down my back. Reaching the altar, something caught my attention. A small book, apparently very old, lay open on the marble surface. Curious, I stepped closer to examine it. The yellowed pages were covered in elegant but strange handwriting. It wasn't Japanese, nor any other language I could recognize. As I touched the book, a shiver ran through my body. The temperature seemed to drop drastically, and my breath formed a small cloud in the air. That's when I heard it. A whisper, so faint I thought it was just my imagination. "Hiroshi!" I spun around quickly, my heart nearly leaping out of my chest. There was no one there, but the whisper came again, this time closer, as if someone were speaking directly into my ear. "You shouldn't be here." I dropped the book, the sound echoing through the empty church. My flashlight flickered once, twice, before going out completely. I was plunged into absolute darkness, panic rising in my chest. "Who's there?" I shouted, my voice trembling. "This isn't funny." A soft, almost melodic laugh echoed through the space. It was a sound both beautiful and terrifying, laden with deep sadness and ancient rage. I felt something cold touch my face, like icy fingers caressing my cheek. At that moment, the candles on the altar suddenly ignited, bathing the place in a trembling, ghostly light. And there, floating a few inches above the ground, was her Oiwa. Her face was a mask of pain and fury, One side was of ethereal beauty, with skin as pale as the moon and eyes as deep as the night. The other side, however, was disfigured. The skin melted and twisted, the eye grotesquely hanging. Her white kimono was stained with red, and her long black hair floated around her as if it had a life of its own. I wanted to scream, wanted to run, but my body wouldn't respond. I was paralyzed, trapped by the piercing gaze of that apparition. "You came seeking answers, Hiroshi?" she spoke, her voice a mixture of whispers and screams. "But are you prepared for the truth?" Before I could respond, the world around me began to dissolve. The walls of the church melted away, revealing scenes of an ancient Japan. I saw a young woman, beautiful and graceful, marrying a man of noble appearance. I saw the same woman, now pregnant, smiling as she caressed her belly. But then the scenes darkened. The husband, consumed by ambition, conspired with a concubine. I saw Oiwa being slowly poisoned, her face becoming disfigured, her body wasting away. The betrayal, the pain, the despair. All of it washed over me like a tidal wave. The visions intensified, showing Oiwa's violent death, her spirit swearing vengeance. I saw generations of people suffering, tormented by the curse of a woman who found no rest. I fell to my knees, tears streaming down my face. Oiwa's pain was palpable, her rage justified. I could feel the weight of centuries of suffering pressing on my chest. "Why show me this?" I managed to stammer between sobs. Oiwa floated closer to me, her face now inches from mine. "Because you doubted, Hiroshi. Because you, like so many others, tried to deny my existence, my pain." I felt her cold hands on my shoulders, and suddenly, I was overwhelmed by a sense of absolute emptiness. It was as if all joy, all hope, had been drained from me. I understood at that moment that this was what Oiwa had felt for centuries. I'm sorry," I murmured, barely able to form the words. "I didn't know. I didn't understand." Oiwa's face softened for a moment, a glimmer of her former beauty shining through the mask of pain. "Understanding is the first step, Hiroshi. But it's not enough." With a gesture, she made a small mirror appear in her hand. When she held it before me, I screamed in horror. My face was transforming, slowly disfiguring, becoming a replica of hers. "Now you will bear my mark," she whispered. "You will live with my pain, a living reminder of my story." I tried to pull away, but it was too late. I felt my skin bubble and melt, my eye hanging out of its socket. The pain was unbearable, but beyond the physical pain, there was something deeper, a profound emotional anguish that seemed endless. The candles suddenly went out, plunging me back into darkness. I heard Oiwa's laughter echo through the church, slowly fading until all was silent. I don't know how long I lay there, collapsed on the cold floor of the church. When I finally managed to move, I dragged myself to the door, desperate to escape that cursed place. The sun was rising when I emerged from the church of Oiwa. The streets of Yatsuya were beginning to come to life, people hurrying to work, not noticing the disfigured man staggering down the sidewalk. In the days that followed, I tried to tell my story, but no one believed me. Doctors diagnosed a rare skin disease. Psychiatrists spoke of stress-induced hallucinations. But I knew the truth. Every time I looked in the mirror, I saw Oiwa's face staring back at me, a constant reminder of the night that changed my life forever. Now, as I write these words, I feel that my time is running out. Oiwa's curse is not just physical. It consumes the soul, slowly, inexorably. Each day is a battle against despair, against the desire to simply give up and join her in eternity. To whoever reads this, I beg you, do not repeat my mistake. Do not challenge the unknown with arrogance and skepticism. There are things in this world, ancient and powerful forces, that defy our limited understanding. And if, on a dark night, you hear a whisper calling your name, if you feel a cold touch on your face, do not ignore it. For it may be Oiwa, seeking another soul to share her eternal pain. As for me, I know my days are numbered. Every morning, I wake up looking more like her, my humanity slipping away like sand through an hourglass. All I can do is hope that somehow my suffering might bring peace to Oiwa, that my story might serve as a warning to others. And perhaps, somewhere between the worlds of the living and the dead, I might finally understand and maybe forgive.